Hi, I'm Jackie McGrath, English professor at College of DuPage. Today I'm speaking with Bill Hillmann, an author whose work is vivid with the geography of Chicagoland. Characters race through the Jewel parking lot, read the headlines in the Trib, and list streets, tollways, and parishes by nicknames familiar only to insiders. He grew up in the Chicago Edgewater neighborhood and earned an MFA from Columbia College Chicago and a bachelor's from Elmhurst College, but he is also a former College of DuPage student who has worked as a union construction laborer, fought his way to a Chicago Golden Gloves championship, and has run with the Bulls in Pamplona. Bill's work has appeared in Salon.com and was broadcast on NPR. He is the author of the novel The Old Neighborhood, and today we'll be discussing the craft of writing and his new memoir, Mozos, a decade of running with the Bulls of Spain. Hi, Bill. How are you?
Good. How's it going, Jackie?
Good.
Thank you for having
Thanks
me.
for joining us today. This is really special. We wanted to ask you a couple of questions about your work, and I wanted to ask you, first of all, could you tell us a little bit about the new book?
Well, my new book is Mozos, a decade running with the Bulls of Spain. It's a memoir that sort of chronicles my decade running with the Bulls, how it changed my life, how I went from sort of a very troubled person to becoming a fairly functional part of society, and found some success as a writer as well.
Would you read a little excerpt so that we can hear a little bit about from the book itself?
This is the opening passage. I fell to the zigzag bricks, flat on my back, astonished at how the glory had unraveled so quickly. A mozo dropped his knee into my chest, and my leg popped up in recoil. The 1,200-pound bull swooped in. His foreleg collapsed as he swung his head low and graceful. The point of his horn struck my inner thigh. I felt a needle prick, then a vast universe of nothing. He lifted me in a majestic lunge. My legs sailed between the planks of the barricades. No pain. I grabbed my crotch and thought, thank God it's not my balls. I want to have kids one day. The horn slid out. I fell to the coarse bricks again. I scampered out on my backside. Then the medics pulled me in through the barricades, and for a moment I was alone. I looked down at the baseball-sized fleshy wound, half expecting it to not be there. What have you done to yourself? Mid-thigh, a deep gouge gaped open, with the skin torn in 3 triangular ribbons, like undone wrapping paper. Blood streaked down the backside of my calf from a second hole and filled my shoe. I peered into the deep, mangled flesh, like a concave, bloody eye, and a voice inside me calmly said, accept it. You knew this day would come.
That's harrowing and vivid. And it makes me wonder and ask, what made you interested in writing in the first place? But then what's it like to write about something so physical?
Well, it was your father, David McGrath, back in 2000 when I was a student here. I had never taken much interest in writing or reading. I'd never read a full novel, or I had never read a full book in my life. I'd always just done just enough to pass my English classes. And my father had always urged me to read Ernest Hemingway. He was a big fan of Hemingway, but I had never taken it very seriously. And I took David McGrath's, your father's, class on Hemingway. And in that class, he was a very charismatic guy, very charismatic teacher. And the way that he sort of described, and sort of explained the metaphors that Hemingway was reaching for. And sort of Hemingway's writing also really spoke to me because he was writing about sort of everyday people, soldiers, fishermen, people that I knew. And I just I was very moved by it, and I realized, that you could make great art out of sort of my experiences, the similar experiences to my own. And I just wanted to start writing. And the first book I ever read was The Sun Also Rises. I read it in one sitting, 6 hours. And when I finished that book, I knew I was going to set out on the path to become a writer.
So practically, what did that look like? Did you take classes? Did you just sit in front of a computer? How did that process develop?
Well, the first story that I wrote, it was kind of inspired by The Old Man and the Sea, which was a book that we read. I didn't completely read the book while I was in your dad's class, sadly, but I did read a lot of it. And in that book, there's a lot of talk about street fighting, bare knuckle fighting amongst the sailors and the fishermen. And I thought it made me want to write about this really wild street fight that I'd been in. And so I just sat down and read it. Wrote it. Sort of went through it moment by moment, like picked through my memory. I really didn't fictionalize much. I just sort of like step by step what happened and sort of made it try to make it as dramatic as possible and as vivid as possible, like Hemingway's writing and your father's writing, by the way. He's also an excellent writer. And you know, once I finished that story, I entered it in a contest. By that time, I was at Elmhurst College, and I won a small award, and that was another push in the right direction. And then I started. I changed my major. I became an English major with a focus in writing. I got a bachelor's degree from Elmhurst College, and after that, I started trying to write for a few years. I struggled, sort of trying to find my way, and then I got into Columbia College, where I earned my master's degree. Yeah. And that's it. That was how it began.
So would you recommend classes to students who are interested in being writers? You know, a lot of people think, well, if I want to be a writer, I can sit down and write. Do you think the training helps?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The training helps an incredible amount. You know. I had a lot of holes in my education because I struggled a lot with behavior problems as a kid and as even in high school, and so I had a lot to overcome in terms of just writing a proper sentence and vocabulary and all these things. So without education, without College of DuPage, Elmhurst, and Columbia, you know, I never would have made it this far.
A teacher always likes to hear that. So, you know, you mentioned the places you attended college. When you attended the College of DuPage, you know, you know this place, you know the students, and I wonder what kind of concrete advice you would give to students who are sitting in my classes right now, students who are sitting out on campus right now. What voice do you think they need to hear, or what would be helpful?
Well, I think the great thing about junior college and community college is that, you know, if no matter what you did in high school, you know, if you struggled, like say, you know, you had problems, you know, you didn't focus, you didn't apply yourself as much as you know you could have. As soon as you get to junior college, that you're essentially your high school record is erased, and you're able to start new. And if you want to be a straight A student, you can do it. And it's just really all it is a matter of work ethic. You know, if you apply yourself, you give your all in every class, you're going to get straight A's, and it's just that simple. And you know, I know a lot of the kids that I was at school with at the time. You know, they were on the honor roll, and they were doing really well, and they were getting scholarships to major schools based off their education here. And you know, that's the only reason I was able to get into a four-year school. I was denied all my applications because my first 2 years in high school, I was like a 1.0 student. So even though I did much better my second 2 years, I wasn't able to raise my GPA to really be considered college material. And I got like a 3.5, I believe, at College of DuPage, and I got into the school I wanted to, and you know, it really started my career.
That's great advice, and that's really true. That's the kind of thing students need to know. That it's true. It's true. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, going from starting to write your first story and to being the writer you are today? What made you first think about publication? Was that always something you wanted, or was that a different kind of journey?
Yeah, I always had it as like a dream, like a distant dream. I knew it would take a long time to get to that level, and I knew it would be a lot of struggle and developing and a lot of work. But yeah, you know, I always knew one day I would get there. You know, it was a long journey. You know, it was from the time I decided to be a writer till my first novel was published was around I want to say 13 years.
So be patient, stick with it.
Yeah. You know, and if you want to be a writer, you got to be extremely stubborn, extremely hardworking, and you have to be totally self-motivated. Because no one's gonna make you write, and no one's gonna make you develop. And the only way you're gonna get mentors is if they see you truly striving. If established writers see you truly striving, they will help you. But if they see they maybe have some talent and you're just kind of messing around, they're not gonna help you. They can see right through it. So just you have to really want it. There's got to be an incredible amount of desire, and because there's so many things standing in your way, you're gonna have to overcome them. But it can be done. You know, it can definitely be done. And don't let yourself be discouraged. You know, if someone tells you you don't have enough talent or ability, you know, I had people say those things to me, and don't let it get you down. Let it motivate you. If it makes you mad, good. Use that anger to push harder in your craft.
So when you had the manuscript for the novel, what was the process like? I know you have a publicist. Do you have an agent?
No, I don't have an agent right now. No, I don't have an agent. Luckily, there's a Chicago publisher that just sort of sprouted up right at the right time, and I happen to know the acquisitions agent. So actually, I sent my novel manuscript. I sent it via Facebook, just a Facebook message, and he read it right away. He was very interested because it was a perfect fit for that publishing house because they're focused on urban literature. They're a Chicago-focused publishing house, but they also have national distribution and all these other really nice things. So it was just a perfect storm for me to land with Curbside Splendor, and but yeah, it's hard to get an agent and all those things. You know, I'm looking at trying to start in that world, sort of that New York big publishing house world, but it's daunting, but you can do it. You know, you can go in. There's if you have a quality manuscript, you can get in with the big boys. There's no question.
You build a writing career one brick at a time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now, can you define for us what is your definition of an urban novel?
An urban novel, it's just a novel in the tradition of writers like Hubert Selby Jr., Richard Price. Guys that really sort of explored the urban experience through characters. There's a lot of them. Irvin Welsh, another great urban realist. And essentially, it's just a novel set in a city with characters that are dealing with urban problems. And, there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, but essentially it's a character trying to navigate the urban experience. And for my book, it was a novel about trying to escape sort of the darkness of the neighborhood the main character was living in. And so yeah, an urban novel, it's essentially it's just a characters sort of navigating an urban experience.
That's a very good working definition. I think it's a genre not a lot of people really think about that category. So kind of moving into the next book, I am really interested in your background in boxing and how that might relate to the athleticism that is really behind running with the bulls in Spain, which is a long tradition. So why don't you tell us a little bit about maybe how you got involved with running with the bulls?
Okay.
And then I'll ask from there.
Yeah, it was from The Sun Also Rises. Reading that book, that's a book that's set in the Fiesta de San Fermin in Pamplona, Spain, and which is completely intact to this day. And it's reading that book, and the way Hemingway described, he doesn't, he never ran himself. He was injured in the war. His knee was injured, so he might not have been capable of really running. But the way he described the run and described the runners, was really stirring for me and made me want to explore that world. So I went out there. It was about 3 years after I first read The Sun Also Rises. I ended up there. My friend was getting married. Irvin Welsh, a friend of mine, he was getting married in Dublin, and so I went to. He told me I had to go to his wedding, so I did. And then it was a really cheap flight over to Spain, And yeah, you know, I went there. I did everything wrong. You know, I got pickpocketed because I was sleeping on the street. There was no hotels available. The second day, I got kicked off the course by the police because I was standing in the wrong place. But luckily, I navigated myself to the right place, and I had a run.
Yeah.
And it was very intense experience. The most intense adrenaline I've ever felt in my life. And I've been in a lot of high adrenaline situations in my life. But it wasn't until the third day I was there that I watched the run from a balcony, and below me a really horrific goring took place. A bull began to gore a guy, and he was in the process of killing him. He gored him in his vitals several times in the face. And it was really horrifying to watch, you know. And as I was watching it, I wanted to help. I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what to do. And then this runner named Miguel Angel Perez, who's an incredible, legendary runner, appeared and grabbed the tail of the bull and distracted the bull away from the man he was killing and led the bull up the street. And it was one of the most beautiful, artistic, wonderful things I'd ever seen. And then I knew that I needed to really learn what was happening on the street and really learn the tradition. And I really deeply wanted to become one of them and to run with Miguel Angel Perez, which years later I did. But that's kind of how it started.
So it sounds like you learned and had some successful experiences before last summer's injury, which you may see as a success.
Strangely, it was a success. In terms of karma,
Yeah.
it was a very, very good karma, even though it appeared to be horrible karma. It was really wonderful for my life and my career. But yes, I over those 10 years, I really did learn the tradition. I began to run in the tradition the proper way. I had some incredibly lucky mornings where I was able to, you know, lead bulls up the street. Actually, I led a bull up the street with Miguel Angel Perez. Literally, like the bull on either horn. We were right in front of either horn, leading this animal up the street. One of my favorite experiences. And actually, when I got gored, I was actually with Miguel Angel Perez again. But I tripped up and fell in front of the bull. But yeah, you know, it's been a really wonderful and enlightening sort of spiritual journey that you know, I explore in the memoir.
Well, and it seems like there are a few challenges with trying to explain that kind of experience. And I know you've mentioned it's a tradition, but it's also an athletic endeavor. So talk a little bit about what it's like to describe in writing something that is physical, something that is athletic. How do you put words to actions?
It's difficult, you know. You really have to. It's really about memory and trying to sort of train your memory and being able to dip into your memory and dip back into those intense experiences. And a lot of times I use photographs to sort of educate my memory, because sometimes my memory isn't quite correlated with the photos, and I realize that maybe the experience was so intense that I thought I was here when I was actually here. And other times I completely forget things that happen that are incredibly intense and horrifying because I blocked them out because I'm in, you know, I'm in shock. Like for example, the passage that I read, I hold the second, because I was gored twice. I don't explore the first goring. I only explore the first goring in that passage because I want to explore sort of that idea of memory, sort of blocking out a memory. And after I was gored the first time, it came off the horn, it fell on my back, and I was trying to get under the barricades. The bull actually gored me again, under the thigh, under my knee, and his face was like essentially like in my chest, and his eye was really like right here looking at me, and he sort of seethed. They do this thing where they're like, and when he did that, the horn actually resonated in my leg. And in that moment, he told me that he could pull me back out on the street and kill me. But he chose not to. And he had mercy on me. And he just let go and just vanished. And so I had blocked that memory completely out after the goring. I was completely blocked it out until the doctors told me, "Why are you telling everyone you were gored once? You were gored twice." And I started thinking about it. And that night, it just came everything just came back. And so, yeah, it's difficult. You know, I really use a lot of different things to sort of help me, sort of train my memory to remember like the closest thing to the truth that I can. And then I just slow things down, you know, moment by moment. Try to trace each moment and give each moment sort of justify it, you know, and let it have its sort of let it be there on the page to sort of you know, give the reader the full experience.
Well, and even finding the right verb.
Yeah, yeah.
You must go through lists of words.
Yeah, I use it
the
the source.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You have to.
So, you know, in terms of that process, it sounds like you have some practical techniques you use, but you also mentioned, you know, there are things you forget, there are memories that you try to recall or represent. So let's talk a little bit about the nonfiction memoir, right? Because there's always that question about truth and memory. And there's so many famous writers in recent memory who have been, you know, in controversies about what they represented in their memoirs. So what's your point of view on maybe sort of the ethics of using memory to tell a story?
Yeah, no, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, it really is dangerous because it's so, you know, there's so many, especially something that's very public, and there's so many points of view on something. You're always going to have people interpreting things differently and feeling sort of like you're lying, even if you're not, even though you're portraying exactly what you remember. Someone standing, you know, in a certain spot may see it completely differently, and to them you're a liar, you're lying. And I've been called a liar a lot, you know, especially with the running of the bulls. You know, there's times when where this young man was crushed to near death, and I helped carry him to the emergency services, and we were lucky enough to get him there just in time because he was on the verge of dying. And after that, you know, because the TV had focused on another one who was crushed, everyone who saw the TV and they said, oh, that was the one, and he didn't do it. He's lying because he wasn't on TV. And so I've been called a liar a lot, and later, when the photos were published in all the newspapers of me and 5 other guys carrying this young man, everyone got real quiet and some apologized. But it was I've always had that sort of negative sort of people lashing out at me about things like that. So but at the same time I'm fearless with it because I believe myself and I know the truth, and you know, and I can accept someone disagreeing with me. But I think you got to have that sort of inner strength to say, I know that this is what happened, and you know, people are going to disagree, but that's okay.
They can write their own book.
Exactly, they can write their own perspective. Exactly.
Well, so you know, when you're looking at pictures and when you're writing the book and when you're thinking about what to say, do you have any guidelines or rules for yourself when you start to doubt your memory, or when you start to feel like, well, I don't really have a picture, so I still can't fill it in? How do you decide? What's your decision-making process?
It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. I struggle with it a lot, you know, and I have pulled parts out that were difficult to sort of justify with like physical evidence, like a photograph or video. But you know, at the same time, you know, like we said before, you know, if I remember something really intensely and it had carried a significant meaning to me and to my journey, then I'm just gonna go with it. And even though there may not be some evidence, I think there's enough evidence usually to justify that these sort of things happen. You know, that you know, these things happen to me over and over again while I was running with the bulls. So it isn't a far stretch to say, you know, this happened even though I don't have a photograph of it. You know, and the other thing too is I'm really, I don't know why anyone would lie in a memoir. You know, I mean, I guess some people, they have their reasons, but for me, you know, I'm fascinated by the experiences I've had and how they've changed me. And I really, when I look at them, you know, I want to honor that experience in a genuine way, because it's therapeutic, and it helps me sort of rationalize and understand what happened to me. And so I'm kind of baffled by the people who lie in their memoirs. But you know, for me, you know, I just kind of trust. I just trust myself enough, you know, that I don't necessarily need photographs of every single moment that I explain in the memoir. But at the same time, you know, if it's a minor detail and it's wrong, I'm not gonna feel horrible about it. You know, I'm not gonna make an apology. You know, if someone pulls a photograph off and something's slightly off, you know.
And that's where the artistic license comes in.
Yeah, and it's memory. You know, we're dealing with memory. Human memory is, you know, it's flawed. It's flawed, and it's incredibly flawed for me. I mean, especially when you're going through a traumatic situation, you can completely forget things and have them completely erased from your memory, and then have them come back. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. Memory is a very, very interesting thing.
Mm-hmm. So, on that note, we hope your visit here helps you have good memories of the College of DuPage, and it's been a pleasure having you here for the Writer's Read.
Thanks so much, Jack.
Thank
I appreciate it.